Thanks for tuning in to this episode of With Just 15 Defeats. I'm Teekosey, and today we are reviewing, evaluating and predicting the outcome of the heavyweight showdown between the champion Anthony Joshua and the challenger Wladimir Klitschko. In doing so, we're going to be assessing the merits of both boxers and running through no less than 15 of the key questions and issues surrounding this super fight before reaching the ultimate goal in predicting the outcome. If you have any questions on this fight or my assessment, I would be pleased to hear from you in the comment section below. I hope you enjoy this preview. So the fight takes place on the 29th of April 2017 at Wembley Stadium. The titles on the line are Anthony Joshua's IBF heavyweight title, as well as the vacant WBA super heavyweight and the IBO heavyweight vacated by Tyson Fury late last year. Now for me, this is the biggest fight of the year. I believe it deserves the merit of a super fight because it involves a living legend of the sport of boxing in Wladimir Klitschko. He is legitimately one of the greats in my opinion. He's just been somewhat unfortunate that he never really had a real sparring partner in these heavyweight title fights over the years. It's a shame when you think about it that the whole issue with David Haye, if he had been able to get his shit together, they could have had a real rivalry 5 or 6 years ago, and maybe we would have seen a number of fights to in and fro in. And also when you think of the factors such as his brother, Vitaly, also competing at the same time, they were never really going to be able to fight the same guys. So there are some better guys on Vitaly's resume that he was able to dispatch, and as such Wladimir was unable to fight those guys. And realistically, there's only a few guys over the career of Wladimir Klitschko that he never really fought. So I think generally he does get a bit of a bad rap for the opponents that he's beaten. He could only beat the crop of fighters that were available, mandatories, etc. Now, also we've got this young buck in Anthony Joshua. Everyone is getting excited about him because of the raw power, the ferociousness, the murderous punching, and his near invincibility so far despite limited opposition, the gold medal, all that, and it brings together the passing of the torch in terms of the heavyweight division. Will the torch be passed over, or will it be returned to the king of the heavyweight division? So this fight has been made possible due to the Wladimir Klitschko versus Tyson Fury rematch never happening. Fury unable to participate in that fight. Very disappointing. A lot of people were excited about that. I personally, just while we're in this position, I would have fancied Fury, if he came with his A game, to be victorious again. But we'll talk about this a little bit more as this video progresses. Now, this was the only fight realistically available for Wladimir Klitschko. Being dethroned by Tyson Fury, it made no sense for him to fight anyone less than the person perceived to be the top champion because of his age, the position where he was. There's no need for him to build himself back up. It's either retire or have another stab at it. And he was obviously prepared to wait. And that's why this fight has taken place 18 months after the defeat of Tyson Fury. So let's quickly go over the two fighters before going through all of the key factors of this fight. So Wladimir Klitschko has a record of 64 wins, 4 defeats, with 53 of his victories coming by way of stoppage. Now, he's been a professional since 1996, so that's over 20 years, and he won his first world title in the year 2000. He's a gold medalist. He is 41 years of age. He's 6'6", weighs in regularly around the 245-pound mark, and he has been in no less than 28 world title fights, and he's beaten 12 undefeated fighters. Okay, some of his best wins are against Kubrat Pulev, Alexander Povetkin, David Haye, Samuel Peter. There are others. Okay, his style is all about repetition. He fights off the jab. He's very considered, very methodical. Everything is planned. He moves in and out, backwards and forwards in a very straight motion. But he's always looking to be out of reach of his opponent. His first thought is defense and not being hurt. Now, his strengths are power in both hands. He's got a very defensive style that is incredibly effective, and he wears down the opponent. Now, his weakness, and for me this is one of the key problems, is that he needs to really plant his feet to fire the big shots. If the opponent is moving around too much, causing him too many problems, he's never going to be confident enough to fire back at all. Okay, and we saw that in the Tyson Fury fight. Now, moving across to Anthony Joshua, the current IBF champion, he's got a record of 18-0, all finished by way of stoppage. Now, he's only been a pro since 2013, so 3 and a bit years. He won his IBF world title in 2016 after the title was taken off of Tyson Fury for not wanting to defend it. That title was then fought from a vacant perspective between Charles Martin and Glashkov. Charles Martin won by a technicality due to his opponent getting injured during the fight and being unable to continue. Now, Anthony Joshua, also an Olympic gold medalist. He's only 27 years of age, so there's a massive discrepancy on the age. That's 14 years. Now, he's 6'6", he's 245 pounds, so on paper they're the same, but from every single photograph, video footage that I've seen, my opinion is that Wladimir Klitschko is going to come in the bigger man. Despite on paper the statistics, Wladimir Klitschko will come across as being the slightly taller man, and I think he's going to have slightly more reach. I just think maybe the way he holds himself gains that little slight advantage. Now, AJ became a world champion in his 16th fight. He has no real notable wins in my opinion. The Dillian Whyte fight may in the future be heralded as a good victory once we see what Dillian Whyte does with his career. But as of yet, for me personally, he has no notable victories that really stand out and really are impressive. Now, his style, the whole game plan looks towards getting the big right hand in. He works off a complete rhythm. He's a very rhythmic fighter. He jabs and he looks in to get close through combinations, and so far has shown no respect to his opponent or their power. Okay, now his strengths are his raw power. He's very direct. He's very accurate and has very good hand speed. And he has what I love in any boxer, the ability to close the show. Now, his weaknesses are that he's incredibly inexperienced. He's fought very few professional rounds. And he's fought very limited opposition, okay? He can be somewhat predictable, as I mentioned. He has a rhythm, and everything is somewhat repetitive. Now, we haven't seen enough of Anthony Joshua. We don't know whether he's able to really change his game plan in fights depending on the opposition, whether he's able to divert what he does. Okay, but that's because there's just so little on Anthony Joshua to assess. Okay, but from what we've seen, he does show some predictability, and that could be taken on board by an opponent. So let's move forward and discuss some of the key questions, the questions that I have thought about in the last few weeks that I think are of interest to this fight and the whole outcome. Now, the first one is the question of the respect between the two guys. We've seen this in the press conferences. We saw this when it was announced, AJ versus WK. It was all a bit... I never liked this. We're talking about prize fighting. We're talking about two guys who are going to go into the ring and they're going to try and stop their opponent. There's no need to be friends, okay? And some of this over-respect that these two guys give, I think, for me, I think it plays into the hands of Anthony Joshua. Because we saw in the Dillian Whyte fight, there was a lot of emotion going on in that fight, and it all came to a point at the end of that first round. Anthony Joshua kind of got a little bit overexcited, and then when he ran into that second round, he walked straight onto a shot, and it all kind of, the story started to unravel momentarily for Anthony Joshua. He managed to get his shit together and sort that out, but we saw that, I think he kind of, as I say, he got a bit emotional. Dillian Whyte got under his skin, okay, and that kind of changed it. We saw how Tyson Fury got under the skin of Wladimir Klitschko, and I still believe that when Wladimir Klitschko pulled out of the fight, pulled out of the first fight, it was 100% not an injury. I believe that when we saw that shenanigans from Tyson Fury, when he came up dressed as Batman, I think that rattled Klitschko. Klitschko was 100% rattled, and he was like, shit, this is, I'm not used to this. Like, he had all the David Haye thing, but this is next level. It really rattled his cage, and I think he thought, do you know what, I need time to reassess the situation, and I think he pulled out because of that. That's my opinion, okay? And I think because of this, I think it plays, it's a benefit to Anthony Joshua that it's all been amicable. It's all been amicable. Now, Klitschko versus Fury, does it have any relevance in this, for this fight? Okay? Now, a lot of people say that Klitschko became old overnight. Now, I don't prescribe to that in that fight. Klitschko lost because he was unable to work out his opponent. Tyson Fury perpetually was moving, switching stances, head movement, feints, moving his arms about, gesticulating, if that's the correct word. He was constantly kind of posing questions that Wladimir Klitschko has never been posed before. And that led to him being unable to really figure out his opponent. He never really figured out the range. He was unable to plant his feet and land the shots that we've seen him be so confident in. Those big left hooks, those powerful left jabs, okay? The 1-2 combination that he's famous for. He was just unable to be confident in his ability to plant his feet and do it because Tyson just wasn't in those positions. And because of that, that's why I think this fight doesn't have that much relevance, because Anthony Joshua, he will not be fighting in that way at all. Okay? Now, Anthony Joshua, Wladimir Klitschko, they sparred some years ago. I can't remember when it was, okay? But is the sparring relevant? Is the sparring relevant? Now, it was some years ago. We're talking about an Anthony Joshua that was quite a bit greener, and obviously there was probably quite a large discrepancy in authority. You're talking about Wladimir Klitschko, super champion, Anthony Joshua, a young buck, a real green young buck, probably full of enthusiasm, wanting to impress this guy. Now, we've heard two different thoughts on this sparring come out from other fighters who were in the camp. Jarrell Miller says that Wladimir Klitschko was whooping Anthony Joshua's ass, whereas Malik Scott says Anthony Joshua held his own. Okay, so it's hard to really decipher what the truth was, and the fact that it was some years ago, and the fact that Anthony Joshua is still relatively young, I don't think it holds any real merit. I don't think that either guys will be taking that much confidence from it. Okay, now we've got Wladimir Klitschko's age. He's going to be 41 years of age. Is that a real concern? Now, obviously, it is a concern because not many fighters fight into their 40s and really excel. We have the exceptions, but it is the exception rather than the rule. Now, I would say that Klitschko has fought exceptional as recently as the Kubrat Pulev fight. He was very, very dominant, very dominant, and he savagely kind of destroyed his opponent, or destroyed his opponent. Now, I think the main bones of contention here are that it's the combination of his age and the fact that he's been out of the ring. Now, the only thing I would say against that is the fact that he hasn't retired. We see a lot of people, they decided, well, I'm going to retire and then I'm going to come back. I want one last fight. We've seen it over the years. So many people do it. They come back 3 or 4 years later. Klitschko is not that guy. He was still competitive in the sense that he had the Fury fight lined up twice in 2016. It never transpired. Then there was talk of possibly the Anthony Joshua fight occurring before Christmas. It didn't. So I think that Klitschko's been in training. He's been pumped up all of 2016. He's been ready. He's been motivated. So I don't think it's a major concern. Right. So how has Klitschko fared against taller fighters? Because, as I say, these two guys are of the same height and size. They're very similar. So how has Klitschko fared against taller fighters? He's fought Ray Austin, who he's stopped. I'm talking about guys that he's fought in about the last 10 years, because Klitschko's been fighting for over 20 years. We can't go so far back. He fought against Ray Austin, stopped him in 2. Tony Thompson, he knocked him out twice. Okay. Whack. Went the full duration. Pianete stopped in 6 and he's lost in 12. So I don't think he has that much of a problem. Obviously, a lot of his opponents that he has fought in the past have been more around the 6'3", 6'2" mark. So he's had that physical attribute advantage. In this, he doesn't have it. But as I say, he has stopped a number of larger guys. Yes, they may be less skilled, but he's been able to either stop them or dominate them, with the exception of Tyson Fury. But that is a unique proposition. Now, going the distance. How, if this fight goes the distance, how does that affect things? Now, despite a fantastic KO record, Wladimir Klitschko has also gone the distance in 8 title fights. Okay, so I don't think there's any problem with Wladimir Klitschko going the distance. On the other hand, we don't know about Anthony Joshua. We don't know how he can go the distance, whether he can go the distance, whether he will fade. Because I think Anthony Joshua's only ever gone to the 7th round. I think it's the 7th round. So we've never really seen go into deep water. So it's possible that he could gas out, particularly the frame and the muscle that he carries is more than any guy in the division. And we know that people that are highly muscular will tire. quicker, their body requires significantly more blood to be punched around the body, and the demand of that on the body will tire you out. Now, we will see how that affects him, and we can't talk about it because we just don't know. Anthony Joshua's chin, is it an issue? Okay, there's talk about Anthony Joshua being stopped in amateur fights. I don't think you can really count them, to be perfectly honest. Obviously, he took a shot from Dillian Whyte. He didn't get dropped. He didn't get stopped. He took a shot and he managed to recover. So he showed powers of recovery against a very powerful shot. So that was good to see from his perspective. And as I've said before, I think he got somewhat emotional in that. So I don't think it's a concern. Obviously, he hasn't really been in there with any devastating punches, and Klitschko is a devastating puncher. So again, it's something that we can't really talk about until we see it. Okay, there was a whole thing with David Price where he was flying through people. He got in the ring with a half decent puncher, and his senses were disconnected from him. So I'm not making a comparison between Anthony Joshua and David Price, but I'm just saying we don't know until he fights and takes big shots whether he is a legit operator in that sense. Now, how will Anthony Joshua deal with the holding and grappling? Now, we've seen this from Wladimir Klitschko over the years. The holding and grappling is a key part of his defence. He likes to keep people at distance and then hold them, bring them in tight, try and wear them down. And this repetition is a problem for opponents from not only a physical perspective, but also it's mentally draining. Now, how will this at the fight? Ultimately, it's all going to boil down to the referee and how the fight is refereed. Now, there's been very few fights where a referee has really done anything about the holding and grappling. I think to a certain degree you have to let it go, but if it's just constant holding and grappling, the referee has to manage that situation. It'll be interesting to see whether Wladimir tries this, because he didn't try it as much as you would expect against Tyson Fury. So the next point is just Anthony Joshua's general lack of experience. There isn't really much we can say apart from he has a general lack of experience. He hasn't been in with high-level operators. He hasn't been in the ring for a long period of time. He hasn't gone the full 12 rounds. He's never been dropped. There's so many things that Anthony Joshua has not experienced in a professional ring, but he is a superstar. He's a very wealthy individual. He's been on big fights on the big stage. He has already fought at Wembley on the undercard of the Carl Froch fight. So he's not going to be overawed. He's not going to show these nerves that maybe someone else could do, right? Will Wladimir Klitschko be nervous of Anthony Joshua's power? Bang obvious. He's going to be obvious. I think in the previous fight against Fury, he knew that Fury didn't really have the power, and despite whatever else happened in that fight, I don't think he was ever nervous of being stopped, being hit and hurt. Whereas against Joshua, he's going to be shit scared of taking a punch, because one punch and it could be over. And I think possibly this could lead to Wladimir Klitschko being very, very negative in this fight. Now, I saw something the other day where David Hay thinks that Wladimir Klitschko is going to get disqualified for holding in this fight because we're going to have a different sort of we're going to have judges that are going to be very pro Anthony Joshua. Now, I hope we get fair judging, that it's not one way or the other. I think we get a nice fair fight. I think it's highly unlikely that Wladimir Klitschko is disqualified. I just can't see that. Okay, so Wladimir Klitschko fighting abroad. And a lot of people are saying this is a huge factor. He's coming over to Wembley. He's going to struggle. He's not getting anything his own way. When he's fought in Germany and whatever, He's got everything his own way. He's got the right gloves. He's got the canvas, the ropes, everything has been his way. And maybe that's the case, but that's because he's the star. He's been the star of the show. He's not necessarily. He's now the B side in this fight. He has to accept that, despite the fact that he's probably going to make more money in this fight than he has done in 99% of his fights. Okay, so the point is that Klitschko has gone abroad. He went and fought Povetkin in Russia, in Povetkin's hometown, whatever, and he absolutely beat the hell out of him, okay? He wasn't scared. He pulled out the business. He pulled out a fantastic performance. He's also fought in about 7 or 8 countries professionally over the years. He has fought primarily in Germany, but that's where the money is, and that's where people fight. Now, I've kind of mentioned the Wembley situation already a few times, so I don't really need to go into that too much. Now, having watched a lot of videos about Wladimir Klitschko and Anthony Joshua over the last few weeks, there seems to be 2 camps. Many people feel that Wladimir Klitschko is done, Anthony Joshua is on the way up, and it's just a matter of time before Anthony Joshua stops him because Klitschko's an old man, okay? Whereas in the other camp, Wladimir Klitschko is going to be too good. He's going to be too skilled. The matchup between the two favours Klitschko. He's going to be able to outbox. Joshua cannot go the full duration, and he is either going to stop him or he's going to win a decisive points decision. And I think that's interesting that there's such a divide, because before I kind of started really thinking about this fight and putting together this video, I thought that most people out there would be thinking Anthony Joshua is going to stop this guy easy. That was what I thought the man on the street, and I actually think the man on the street, the casual fan, will be sitting there thinking Anthony Joshua is going to stop him. Wladimir Klitschko couldn't lay a glove on Tyson Fury. Now we've got Anthony Joshua, who is a beast. He is savagely stopping everyone in his path. There's only ever going to be one outcome. Okay, so it was a surprise to me that there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of my contemporaries, and they're picking Wladimir Klitschko for very good reasons. Now, I think it boils down to Anthony Joshua's power and how Wladimir Klitschko is able to absorb that, as opposed to Klitschko's defense. How Klitschko defends, okay? So we've got that power. Anthony Joshua stopped people. He can stop people. And I think if he lands on the button with Wladimir Klitschko, he will stop him as well. But we know that Wladimir Klitschko is one of the greatest defensive heavyweights of all time. What he is capable of doing has kind of changed the game. But what also always surprises me about Wladimir Klitschko is that more heavyweights don't try and replicate his style, because of he had these knockout defeats in the past. He managed to change his style and become a guy that fought in 28 world title fights. So it always surprises me that more guys of a similar frame and size do not try and replicate his style. So I think the defense is key. He was unable to really do that against Tyson Fury because of the way that Tyson Fury moved, and he just completely fumbled him. He just didn't know what to do, and I don't think he will ever be able to kind of beat Tyson Fury when Tyson Fury is on his A game. So, as I say, it's those 2 points: the defense of Klitschko, if he's on point, versus the power and the accuracy of Anthony Joshua. Okay, because in terms of Anthony Joshua, to beat both of these guys, to be perfectly honest, unpredictability will beat both of these guys because they're slightly slower in their movement. They're all about rhythm. They're all about timing. They're all about planting their feet and landing big shots. And unpredictability beats them. That's what we saw against Tyson Fury. And that's why I think if the perfect version of Tyson Fury will be both guys if they both fought again. Tyson Fury's number one version of himself would be Anthony Joshua, and obviously in a rematch he would be Klitschko again. Now, will this be the last fight in Wladimir Klitschko's esteemed career? I think the answer is yes. I think whatever happens, win or lose, it goes to be the last fight in Wladimir Klitschko's career. If he loses, there isn't really anywhere for him to go. If he wins, there is the potential that he may seek to have a rematch with Tyson Fury. But for me, I think it will be the end. And because of that, I think that plays into Anthony Joshua's hands, because anyone that goes into a fight knowing that this is the end will be up against it. There'll be the nerves. They'll be thinking, I need to win this. I need to finish on a big win, but can I? And it's never something... I always think if you are going to retire, make that decision after. Never think about it at the time. Never fight with that feeling. Fight as if you're going to fight for another 10 years. Okay? You've got that hunger. Because if you know this is it, the hunger won't be there. Okay? So moving forward, and a win for Anthony Joshua will legitimise himself as a world champion. Because at the moment we'd say he's got no notable victories. Even his world title fights have been against really poor opposition. Despite the fact that they're probably the guys that he should have been fighting at this point in his career, they're world title fights, so they're not good enough. They're not good wins. Okay. And winning against Wladimir Klitschko, despite that Wladimir Klitschko has already lost back in 2015, it legitimizes himself as a serious world champion. Now, if Wladimir Klitschko wins, it puts him back on the top of the tree as the number one guy. Okay, and it really kind of brings full circle on a career that looked to be over. Okay, now my prediction, we've finally come to a prediction. We've discussed a lot of things about this fight. We've spoken about things in and out of the ring. Now my prediction, the more I look into this, the more I favour Wladimir Klitschko. I think there's a lot of things that favour Wladimir Klitschko in this fight from a skills perspective. But despite having said that, my prediction is Anthony Joshua wins by KO, and he wins by KO before the 6th round. Okay? And I'm going against my better judgment by saying this, but I just feel that it's very difficult for people in the later years to really put up a great performance. I think the threat of him in his mind, probably wanting to call it a day, the age, the raw power of Anthony Joshua, if he can land a big shot, the nervousness that he will feel in the ring, they all lead towards an Anthony Joshua victory for me. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this episode of With Just 15 Defeats. If you have any questions about this fight or my assessment, I would be pleased to hear from you in the comment section below. Please take the chance to check out my channel and subscribe if you're not a subscriber already. If you are a subscriber, I just want to say thanks to you all. I really appreciate you. You help me and you drive me forward to create more content for you. So Anthony Joshua versus Wladimir Klitschko. I hope you enjoy the fight and I hope it's a fantastic fight.